Hey everyone, this is Crystal, and today I am going to be making a card with all of you. So this is the card that we'll be making today. I am going to switch it up just a little bit because, well, I don't like to make the same card twice ever. So I'll be changing it up a little bit, but the design of the card will be the same. So I have all of my supplies out here on my desk. I'll be starting with a blank note card. This is a pre-cut Nina Solar White 80-pound note card. It's already scored from Scrapbook.com. For the dark blue background, I'll be using the boho cardstock paper pad. There's some gorgeous navy blue in the back here. I will also be using the Mod Asterisk stencil from Scrapbook.com to get this kind of snowflake pattern in the background, using some metallic frost ink, also from Scrapbook.com. And the foam dauber from Scrapbook.com to apply it. I found this works much better than some of the other tools that I've tried. I have the Merry Christmas die set and some silver foil paper. So for this card, I had used some white glitter paper for the sentiment and to mat my card front, but for this one we're going to try some silver foil instead and see how that looks. I also have some clear shimmer spray from Avery Elle. That is how I got the dots, the rest of the snow in the background. I tried using the metallic frost ink and it didn't give me the look I was after, and I found this worked much better. So we're going to use some of that as well. Okay, so first things first, we need to do some die cutting. I'm going to clear all this away, get out my die cutting machine, and die cut some words. Okay, so I have out my super old Epic 6 die cutting machine and my cutting plates. I have the die here and the silver foil paper and some scrap white cardstock because I want to give this sentiment some dimension, and instead of using foam and trying to get foam cut to these tiny little phrase pieces, I'm just going to cut multiples out of white cardstock and stack them up. So that is the plan. I have some mint tape to keep everything in place. I'm going to start with the white cardstock and cut this a few times, and then we'll do the silver foil paper. Okay, so I've cut it 4 times out of white cardstock, and now I am just going to lay this down, tape it down, and cut it from this beautiful silver foil paper. Okay, so now that I have all of my die cuts cut out, I'm going to start adhering them together. To do that, I'm using some Smart Craft glue from Scrapbook.com. This is a tacky glue. It works really well for adhering these die cuts together. It has a very fine tip, which works out perfectly for these delicate die cuts. I will say, be careful not to squeeze the bottle. It's a very liquid glue. It flows out of the bottle very nicely. You don't have to squeeze it at all. Just let gravity do its thing. If you squeeze it, you're going to end up with a big messy glob, and this is a tacky glue, so that's going to be a big mess to clean up. So don't squeeze, just let it flow out of the bottle naturally and you won't have any trouble. So I'm just adding a thin line of glue to the die cut, and then I'm going to stack the next one on top. I'll pick it up and use my fingers to make sure that the entire thing is aligned. I just work from one end to the next to make sure that all the little pieces are lined up perfectly, and then I'm going to do that for all the layers of this die cut, including the silver foil top layer for both the Merry and the Christmas. And then we can move on to the card panel. Okay, it's time to work on our background now. So I'm going to grab one of these gorgeous navy blue papers from the Boho paper pack, and I have my Mod Asterisk stencil and my foam dauber and the metallic frost ink pad. So what I'm going to do is just adhere this straight down to my glass mat. So because I know this is going on a card, it's going to be glued down to another layer over the top of a card base. I'm not worried about having adhesive on the back, and this just makes it super easy for me to line up my stencil where I want it. And then I can use, this is the same mint tape, by the way. We'll see if it has enough stick left to actually hold. It doesn't always like to stick to this glass mat after it's been used a couple times, so I'm actually going to get just another piece there to replace that one. It does not want to stay, but it cut out, let's see, 10 die cuts I had used that for, so got lots of use out of it. I'm not going to stress about using another piece. So okay, I have it taped down. I'm going to ink up. This is a dauber that I'm using just for this particular ink, just for this metallic frost ink. I'm going to ink it up really well, and then I found the best way to get ink onto your paper through this stencil is to dab. So that's what I'm going to do. You can kind of rub it just to make sure you get a full coverage, but if you want that metallic shine from the frost ink, you're gonna need to dab it on. So just get good coverage of that ink on here, dab, make sure I've got full coverage of the stencil. I'm just going to go around and do that for the whole thing. Okay, there we have it. So I can go ahead and put this away. And I'm going to set my stencil aside. I'll just run that under some warm water here in a minute. But first, I want to make sure that I clean off my surface. I'm going to very carefully peel this up and just wipe any excess ink off of my glass mat. Okay, now I can put this back down, and then I'm just going to grab this Avery Elle clear shimmer spray, and I'm just going to use the little tube, the little, I don't even know what that's called. The little tube that goes down into the bottle. I'm not going to spray it. I want bigger drops and more control over where they go. So I'm just going to use this. You could obviously use a paintbrush and dip a paintbrush into the shimmer spray and splatter it that way. I find this works good enough for me. Just going to make sure I have good coverage and it looks like snow. You can even add strategically placed dots this way if you're not getting the dots where you want them to be. This works well too. And then this is going to take just a few minutes to dry. So I am going to go and clean off that stencil and let this sit here for a minute to dry. Okay, so my card front is pretty dry at this point. You can see all the sparkles. It has a bit of an iridescent shimmer to it, so it kind of picks up different colors. I really like the look of that. Okay, so we need to grab our card base. We need to adhere our sentiment down, and then we also need to cut a sheet of the same silver cardstock to mat this with. So we need to trim everything down, get it all matted, add our sentiment, and then just put the card together.
So I'm going to start by trimming off just a little bit of this navy card panel from all four sides. And I'll be honest with you, this is the part of card making that I probably struggle with the most, trying to figure out exactly how much to cut from each panel to get that layered look of the top panel and then the mat and then the card base. And if you want them all visible, how much should you cut off of each side? I'm not good at figuring that out on the fly. So it takes me a minute to really figure out how much I need to cut off of each of these to make them work. I know that Christina Warner has a guide. She has a printable guide that you can use, and I have downloaded it, but I have not printed it out, so I don't ever have it handy. I need to just go ahead and do that and have it sitting next to my desk so that I don't have to figure this out on my own every time. And I know it seems like it should just be simple, but for some reason, when that camera is on and the numbers are in my head, it just doesn't come naturally. So I do eventually figure it out. I am going to trim both of these down. I think I took 1/4 of an inch off of each side of the navy panel, and then I think 1/8 of an inch off of the standard A2 dimensions for that silver panel. I ended up having to trim just a little bit more off because it wasn't quite even. And then I finally have my layered panels. So I'm going to go ahead and fold that card base in half, add a little bit of mint tape to the inside so that it stays shut while I'm trying to glue all these things together. I'm using some double-sided tape from Scrapbook.com. This is a 1-inch double-sided tape. It's great for adhering large panels like this together. It sticks really well, and I didn't want any extra dimension here, so I'm just adhering them flat together. So I'm going to go ahead and peel off the backing and then do my best to line up this front panel with the mat. Now I am actually standing. When I'm working, I'm generally standing at my desk. So it's much easier to get things lined up, straight and even, if you're standing and can look directly down on top of the card you're creating. If you generally sit, I would recommend standing up to do this part. It just makes the whole thing a whole lot easier. You can also use a grid mat. You can use whatever mat you use to work on. If it has a grid on it, that can help you as well, just to make sure everything is centered and aligned. Now when I folded that in half, I didn't quite get it straight, so I just had to undo my tape and get it a bit straighter before adhering this top panel down. It wasn't perfect, even though I'm standing over the top of it and looking down on it. It wasn't exactly perfect, but once that tape is stuck, it is stuck. So there was no peeling it back up to get it straighter, and it was off by just a tiny fraction. So I'm just going to let that one go. So now it's time to adhere my sentiment to the front of this card. I'm just trying to work out exactly how I want it. There is a descender on that Y that needs to somehow kind of nestle in with the Christmas below it. I don't want them to look too separated. I don't want them to feel like they're just floating separate from each other. So it's just kind of a balancing game to get them lined up and nestled together just right on that card. So what I'm doing right now is I'm taking my powder tool and just going over the sides of these die cuts. Because I used tacky glue to adhere these together, if there was any spillage, if I got too much glue in any one spot, it's going to stay tacky on these die cuts. And I don't want the card front to be tacky, to stick to the envelope or to stick to anything else. So I'm just adding a little bit of powder to make sure that tackiness of the glue it goes away, and it does add powder, of course, to that mirror cardstock, but all you have to do is take a cloth and wipe it clean once you have it all stuck down to the card, which you'll see me do here in a little bit, and then that powder comes right off, but the tackiness does not stay tacky. So I added a bit more glue to the back of that Christmas die cut to adhere it to the front of the card. I'm using that same Smart Craft glue from Scrapbook.com to do that. And then I will do the same thing with the Mary. I'm using my tweezers. These are also from Scrapbook.com to adhere the sentiments to the card. That just makes it so that my fingers are out of the way and I can see exactly where I'm gluing it down. I don't have to kind of guess and try and look around my fingers, and also I don't get glue all over my fingers, which helps this process tremendously. Keeps my fingers from sticking to the entire card. So I did the same thing with the Mary, just sticking it all down, giving it a good press to make sure that every part of it is well adhered to the card base. I added a tiny dot of glue there to stick that top of the eye. By the way, I did not layer the dot of the eye with white cardstock. I'm just using just the metallic cardstock. That is too tiny to try and layer together, so that metallic cardstock is going to be just fine for adding the dot to the eye. And then I did add a stamp block over the top just to make sure everything was well adhered, and there I am wiping the extra powder off the top of the card, and that's it. That's the card all done. So I hope you enjoyed this process. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy it, please do give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Thank you all again, and I will see you back here soon.